clarify?
Mr. Singh, you were saying single payer universal. Mark Holland this weekend on CTV said he's not ideologically wedded to that idea. Does it have to be that March 1st?
Yes.
The discussions between both parties are very healthy, open communication.
We approach it with a collaborative mindset. We've always done that. We've always heard them out.
Bottom line, we're demonstrating that, two parties that not necessarily think the same always can work together.
Jagmeet Singh issuing an ultimatum today under the governance agreement between the NDP and Liberals. The Liberals already have a March 1st deadline to introduce framework legislation for Pharmacare. But over the weekend, Health Minister Mark Holland told us he's not ideologically wedded, quote unquote, to the framework being for single-payer universal Pharmacare. Something Singh today said, as you heard there, is a deal breaker. Is this the beginning of the end for the confidence and supply agreement between the two parties? Let's talk to the front bench about that. Former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant is here. He's the CEO of Space Canada. Former Alberta MLA and Cabinet Minister Gary Marr is with us. He's the President and CEO of the Canada West Foundation. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is here, and the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie is too. Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Tom, I'm definitely going to start with you on this one. Look, we have been covering this deal since it was formed. And today was, I would say, the most specific Jagmeet Singh has been about what a red line is and how willing he is to walk away. I don't remember this level of specificity prior. Do you think the NDP is prepared to walk away from it? Should they be?
It has to be prepared to walk away, Vassy. There's no question about that. And everybody in the party that I've talked to since the beginning of this supply and confidence deal has understood that Singh has to be ready to walk away. Because if he stays in it for too long, how does he answer questions on the doorstep when he's trying to say to voters, don't go with the Liberals, they're a bunch of no-goods. And he's been supporting them for years. How does he explain that? So he gets to walk away with his head held high, saying, well, it's not the type of pharmacare system we'd like. He does want universal single payer, i.e. run by civil servants. The best system in Canada in terms of the completeness of the coverage is the Quebec model, where it's hybrid. You keep the private insurers and you add on from the government. It's the most complete coverage. So Mr. Singh is going for an ideological purity instead of going for the result. And the ideological purity happens to say at the same time that he wants to have more civil servants that happen to be in the civil service unions that happen to be very close to the NDP. That's not a coincidence. I think that he's looking for a way to get out of this thing. Holland will come up with something that will be different from what Singh is asking for, and then the Liberals get to say, we're good public administrators. You see, we're not going along with the NDP plan, so it's a little bit of a win-win. And by the way, nobody should forget that the Bloc Québécois has more than enough seats to pass a budget. They'd have no reason to trip over this as an issue on the budget because it doesn't even pertain to Quebec. And don't be surprised to see the Bloc Québécois support the budget if, indeed, the NDP votes against it.
Well, my sort of interpretation of what Jagmeet Singh was saying, Brian, is that he's willing to walk away from the deal, but he's not that doesn't necessarily equate with being willing to force an election. And from my vantage point, I'm wondering, is there a strategic disadvantage for the NDP to just end the formal part of this and go on an ad hoc basis? You don't have to force an election, but you do, to Tom's point, get to go to the door and say, I'm not formally propping them up anymore.
Yeah, a few things. I mean, I don't know the inner workings of this, of their talks and of the agreement, but from what I do know and from sort of my experience in politics, I'd be a bit surprised if everybody talking about what's about to happen, deadlines, all that good stuff, aren't completely aware of what is going to be presented, and they know exactly sort of the reaction of the other party. I mean, that's I'm sure the discussions that they're most likely having as the two parties negotiate on some of the key parts of their agreement, so and try to move forward on key parts of their agreement. So it's a bit odd when you think about it, because they kind of all know what's in it. So if I would think, so if Jagmeet Singh knows what's in it, he could say today, look, I know what they're about to present and it's not good enough, so the deal's done. He could do that today, or he may be playing a bit of a game, but I just don't get the sense that that's what it is. So first comment is, I think everybody kind of knows where each party stands. The second thing, I agree 100% with what you just said, and with what Tom was mentioning as well, in the sense that, yeah, even if the agreement kind of falls apart, doesn't mean the government falls. The NDP could continue to, without the agreement, support the government like it's been doing. The Trudeau government can look to other partners as well. To your point, I do think, and to Tom's, I think that the NDP could politically benefit from picking something that they want to talk about being the line in the sand, and then they can go on the doorsteps during the campaign, whenever that would be, whenever one of the parties or two of the parties decide they want an election, and say, look, we brought in some things that were good, but we had sort of our line in the sand. They crossed it. They didn't meet our demands, and we ended it. So we'll do the same thing in the next Parliament. Give us your vote. So it could be strategic for them to do that.
To Brian's first point, Gary, I think that has definitely been the case, right? Ultimately, Jagmeet Singh comes out. He says this has to happen by this day, but he already knows it's going to. In this case, it does feel a little bit different. And the conversations I have, for example, with people behind the scenes, that's why today, when he was so explicit about that it had to be universal single payer, it actually took me by surprise that he answered so definitively, because that isn't necessarily where things are at, it appears, behind the scenes. Do you think this could be a bit different, or is it probably like what Brian has described in all the other instances, and the terms have already been set?
I think Brian's right on that point, and I also have to say that I agree strongly with Tom that you don't want to be going to the doorsteps answering questions about why you supported a government that has under-delivered on the promises that they made to you as part of this governance agreement. So I think that Jagmeet Singh has taken the right approach, if that's philosophically what he thinks is the right thing to do. Will it end the agreement between the two? Hard to say, but I would say that there'd be nothing that would make Pierre Poilievre happier than to go to the polls immediately if Parliament should fall. So I don't think that'll happen. I think that the parties will want to continue to stay in Parliament for as long as they can. The government certainly is interested in doing that in order to be able to make as many changes and improvements before the writ is dropped. And I think the NDP is also in the same shoes. It's the Conservatives that really want the government to fall.
Rob, speak a bit. We've talked very much about the sort of calculation on the NDP's part, but the calculation for the Liberals. It might have been a bit different a few years ago when the deal was formed, and they were a few points back and forth between themselves and the Conservatives. But right now, beyond just the votes on confidence, the NDP actually helps them a ton behind the scenes in advancing their own agenda. Everything from voting with them on committees to, closure in the House of Commons, like a lot of wonky, weird stuff behind the scenes, but they've actually proved to be really helpful to the Liberals in advancing their agenda. Should they be worried about the possibility of Jagmeet Singh walking away?
Well, I mean, they should be in the sense, Vassy, that it ends it creates a new day-by-day hassle. Right now, they don't really have to worry about those things as on an hour-by-hour basis. Whereas if everything is in case-by-case, and I think that's where this is headed, I think Tom and Gary and Brian are all right that this seems to be where that's headed. It gives an off-ramp for Mr. Singh. It also gives an off-ramp for the Liberals, I suppose, on some level, although they would prefer to stay on the highway with the NDP helping to drive the bus for as long as they can. So I think it does create a headache for them. But, what's the old adage? The worst day in government is better than the best day in opposition. And the Liberals have had a lot of worst days in government, and they'll happily take them because they know, they can read the polls, that if an election were held today, the only one who benefits is Mr. Poilievre's Conservatives. And I don't think the Bloc wants an election. I don't think NDP wants an election. And I know the Liberals don't want one. So I don't think we're having one for another 20 months.
Oh, daring prediction. Tom, I have like 1 minute left. I just want to ask you one quick follow-up. I asked you first whether it's possible for the NDP to walk away. And I wonder, just as someone who used to lead the party, whether you think they should.
I think they should. I think that they have to draw that line in the sand and then say the deal is done. And they can take their own decisions on a case-by-case basis, but they've got to show autonomy from the Liberals. This was a bold move by Singh. Some people were leery about it, but he put himself in lockstep with Justin Trudeau. It's worked out. He gets to point to the deal, for dental coverage for kids, stuff like that, Vassy. But now it's time for him to say, okay, we've got to go on our own, and this is an ideal possibility for him. We ran on this in 2015. The Liberals have talked a good game on Pharmacare for decades, never gotten it done. Singh gets to say he's serious about it. He can carry that into the next election. Good move.